Hi, I'm Jim Pence and welcome to Drawing with Chalk. Today we're going to focus on another picture element. Last time we focused on how to draw clouds, and this time we're going to focus on how to draw mountains. You know, there's nothing more beautiful than a majestic mountain range. They make a nice addition to a picture when you're just creating a drawing. So we're going to discuss different ways to draw mountains, how to make them look realistic, and how to get the illusion of perspective and make them look far away or make them look close up, whatever you want to do. Now I've got my paper all ready, at least almost ready. It's actually a white background, and I left it white for a reason, because I want to remind you that particularly if you're using the big lecturer's chalk like I use normally, this is actually a small piece of lecturer's chalk that I've worn down and used many times, so it's a little tiny chunk now. But if you're using the big soft chalk, which can get expensive, then one of the best ways to practice a little bit is to just practice on a white surface, so that you can get a feel. See, that chalk just broke as I was working with it. Get a feel for whatever it is you're trying to draw, without messing the paper up for another drawing. So I can practice mountains, I can practice hills, I can practice trees, just using white chalk, and it preserves the chalk. It cuts down on the number of different colors you use. Plus you can practice more than once, because I have an eraser here that I reserve pretty much for white chalk, and so I can come back in, take that off of my paper, and then just start drawing again. Now remember, like I said before, if you're doing this at home in the house, you're going to notice when you erase, you're going to throw a lot of chalk dust into the air. So be sure, if you're going to erase, take your drawing board outside and do that, or if you have a dedicated room where it doesn't matter, because this chalk generates a lot of dust, and the more you erase it, the more dust you kick into the air. So just a word to to be aware of, so that you don't have chalk dust everywhere in your house. All right, I'm going to take my it's kind of a dirty blue eraser, and that's because I've used it for some other pictures. I'm just going to use what I've got here, and I'm going to use my eraser to kind of color a blue background. And that's just so we have something toned to work on. I've talked about this before, and you'll hear me say it many times, that chalk or pastel goes better on a toned paper. Now, if you've just erased it like I did, again, there's a lot of dust on the surface. You blow it, you're going to get it in the air. So I will take my hand a lot of times and just smooth it in, and that way it's going to get rid of most of that excess dust and transfer it to your hand. So remember to keep your rag nearby, or baby wipe. I've got a baby wipe today, and so that's just going to clean my hand off and get it so I don't transfer color where I don't want it. All right, let's talk about mountains. For starting to draw mountains, you want to, first of all, just be very simple in your design. I'm going to use a light blue. It's really the same color here, but it'll be a little bit darker. To practice mountains, what I tell people is just make V's. That may not show up really well because it's going to match too much, so I'm going to backpedal and use some darker chalk here so you can see what I'm doing better. You're going to make some upside down V's. Okay, that's the basic mountain shape. Just up and down. Now these are obviously going to be for distant mountains. You're going to use the side of the chalk, and particularly a sharp corner, sharp edge, and just draw V's. Now, it also looks like ocean waves, and you actually use the same technique doing that. Okay, I'm going to erase a little bit more. Take some of that off. And just practice getting that shape right. Usually when somebody is beginning and learning how to draw a mountain like this, a lot of times they make the peak too tall, or they draw a line. Okay, don't want to draw a line. We want to get a nice good shape here. So that's why, again, you're not going to use the tip of the chalk. You're going to use the edge of the chalk and get a lot more down in one shot. Okay, I'm going to take that off again. Okay, let's get rid of some of the excess here. I'm just going to rub it in. And let's do a few more mountains. Now, once you have done a bunch of these, it's going to start getting boring. So you can begin to add a little bit of variety. Let's do a double mountain here. I'm going to do a little bit more of a peak. And then I'm going to add another shape right there. I'm going to come in and blend it down with my fingers. And I've got what could be a distant mountain. Now, to make it even look a little bit more like a distant mountain, a lot of times I will take either white or peach, and I'll come in and just hit the tip and the side of that mountain, just like that. And when you do that, you get a nice mountainy feel. All right, so that's one way to create a mountain. Now, the paper is getting dark enough. I can show you what I do when I'm using lighter blue chalk. The best color to use for very distant mountains is going to be a very light blue. And again, I'm just going to use that kind of double upside down V and lay in just a tiny bit of peach. Peach or white, you can use white too. And the question is, well, is this snow? Not necessarily. It could just be the light, sunlight hitting the side of the mountain. So we've got a couple different mountains here. Now I want you to watch one more time. I'm going to do another mountain. I'm going to do it in a very dark blue chalk. Let's do it up here. This particular piece of chalk is kind of hard, so it's not wanting to draw easily. I'm going to do another double mountain there. And again, use my fingers to blend it down. And I'm going to use again a little bit of peach. And I'm just going to come in and hit the side of it. Again, still working on the corner and the edges, not drawing like a pencil where I'm using the tip of the chalk. I'm stroking and using the broad side of the chalk, or again, the corner, actually, the edge, as I try to get as much coverage as I can. Okay, so we've got 3 different colors for mountains. And one thing that, as you begin to make pictures, you're going to want to learn how to do is to create the illusion of distance and perspective, because the mountains that are in the lightest blue chalk are going to be the ones that are going to look the farthest away. This kind of medium value is going to look a little bit closer, and the dark blue is going to be really close. So it just depends on what you're trying to draw. If you're just using mountains as kind of, you know, the far background scenic mountains, then you're going to go with a color like light blue. If you want something up close and a little bit more dramatic, then you're going to use one of these two, either the turquoise here, which is kind of a medium blue, or the dark blue. And we actually have a darker blue, but I'm not using that today. So first step in drawing mountains is just getting a feel for the basic shape. And let me get a little of this dust out of the way. And practice, practice, practice. It can be boring, but as you get the hang of doing picture elements and doing mountains, then you're going to get a feel for creating a really nice dramatic effect with, again, beautiful scenic mountains. All right. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and do a quick picture that is going to incorporate the two picture elements that we have already learned, one clouds and then mountains. And this will be a quick picture. You can practice a little bit, but remember, get that motion, that upside down V motion, so that your mountains look realistic, and we'll have some fun with it. So I'll be back in just a minute. All right, here's an art tip this week for working with chalk. When I'm demonstrating these drawings, I'm using lecturer's chalk, which is very large. It's 3 inches long. This is actually a cut piece, but it's normally about 3 inches long by 1 inch square. And it's fine if you're drawing in big format like I tend to be, but if you're trying to draw something small, it can be a little cumbersome. And what I'd like to do is just briefly show you how you can cut it up into nice little triangles that will be very easy to work with. And these are not much larger than your average pastel would be, so they're good to work with. All you need is something to draw a line, a score on the chalk. If you've ever looked at a pill, sometimes you'll see a pill has a little line indentation down the middle, and that's so you can break it into two smaller portions. Well, I have no official tool. This is a leatherworking tool. This is for electronics. This is a bent paper clip. I can even use my own fingernail if I want to. But to do this, and I've already done a couple just so I would have shapes to show you going in. To do this, all I do is I measure about how thick I want it to be. And normally it's I don't know what the exact measurements are on this, but that's about the width. If you go too much narrower than this, then it will tend to break up in your hand when you break it into a smaller piece. So I'm just going to use my tip, my sharp tip, and it's not particularly sharp. It wouldn't poke you if you put it on your finger. I mean, you can do that. It's not terribly sharp, but I'm going to go all the way around and just cut a little score in the side of the chalk. No, I didn't quite match up, but that's really okay. It's not that big a deal. I'm just going to make sure the scores match all the way around as much as possible. It won't be even, but that's all right. Okay, and once I have a score all the way around it, I'm just going to grab it. I'm going to hold the scored end, or hold one end, the end that I'm breaking off here, hold the other end here, and I've just snapped off a nice chunk. Now that's still a little big. I'd like to have it in a smaller piece, so I'm going to do the same thing again, but this time I'm going to go diagonally across the chalk. And you can score down the edge if you want to. I found it's not really all that necessary. Now I've got some extra scoring here, so it may break up on me just a little bit. We'll see what happens. Just go down the edge. You don't really have to do that, but I did just to see what it would do. Okay, I'm going to take one end in each hand, and again, going to break it. It broke very nicely, and so now I've got, you know, 4 little chunks, and I've actually got a couple that didn't work quite the way I wanted to earlier. But again, what I found, again, especially if you're working in small format, these little chunks are really nice, because this can be, you know, it can be sometimes too big if you're trying to put any fine detail in. So that's just a quick tip on how to break chalk into smaller and more useful pieces. Well, we better get back to that mountain drawing, so let's get back to work. All right, we've zoomed in a little bit, and let's just improvise and do some mountains. I'm not really going to be trying to draw a full picture, but I want to take our elements that we have learned over the last couple of weeks. We learned clouds last week, and we're learning mountains this week. So let's put those together and just improvise a little landscape. That's one of the things I just love about working with chalk is you know, you can have some fun, and if it doesn't turn out the way you like it, then grab an eraser and try again. So for starters, I'm going to take a little white and let's throw some clouds in here, just so that we have something so you can practice your clouds again. Remember, actually, I just erased this, so let me smooth it with my hand a little bit, get some of that excess chalk dust off. All right, let's just throw some clouds in just for fun, just to give a little picture. Remember, I'm using the side of the chalk, and I'm just going in a circular motion. Remember, we don't want to do a circle like that, so that we have a little, you know, sheep. Don't want sheep. Get rid of those. Okay, just now the main thing with the clouds, remember, you want to keep them from being too uniform. You know, you don't want it to look like that. You want some irregularity. So, you know, some I'm going to punch up, some I'm going to let be down, and we're just going to have a little bit of fun again using the side of the chalk and the edges. Okay, let's get that out of there. Get my eraser, kind of remove that. Okay, and I'm just going to come in and I'm going to blend a little bit. And I'm not going to worry too much. I know I'm taking out a lot of those edges there, but we'll come back to those in just a minute. I just want the color basically to be kind of a nice white. And I will come in on top of that and add in just some highlights to make it look a little bit more cloudy. All right. Again, you can, all of the effects that I'm doing, all the types of drawing that I'm doing here, you can do with soft pastels. I'm using lecturer's chalk, but you don't have to use that. Regular soft pastels will work really well. Okay, so we've just laid in some clouds. Again, just for fun. If you want to, you know, practice a little bit more, you can come down and do some more distant clouds. Remember, the closer they get to the horizon, the smaller they're going to be. So, you can, but again, this is just sort of an improv. I don't have anything in particular in mind. I'm just drawing for the fun of it and seeing what, you know, what works out. So I'm just throwing in some lines. And again, that's the beauty of being able to erase this. If you don't like what you've created, you look at it and say, you don't like that too much. You know, just boom, it's gone. Come back. I'm going to use the heel of my hand to kind of get rid of that line, blend it down a little bit better. And I have a very dirty hand, but that's okay. All right. Get that edge out just a little bit so that it blends in a little bit better. All right, so to throw in a mountain, let's throw in, for starters, a distant mountain. I'm going to use my lightest blue to do that. And remember, I'm going to keep it in proportion. Remember, it's going to be off in the distance, so I don't want it great big. I'm going to put it kind of just a little bit off-centered, Remember the upside down V. Now this is going to be kind of hard to see because it almost perfectly matches the value of the background. Normally I would want this background to be a little bit lighter so that this stands out more, but I've gone over this blue so many times that it's not going to show up quite as well, but that's okay. Right now we're just kind of, again, play. Alright, so I've got my double upside down V, and I'm going to soften that off. And then I will come in with my peach. You can use white. This is a light peach color. And again, I'm going to just hit the side just a little bit. Again, this isn't snow. It's more light hitting the side of the mountain. Okay, so we've got that in. It's not particularly bright. I don't want it real bright. If I make it too bright, then it's going to pull it to the front. If I make it too bright, if I put too much detail in it, it's going to bring it to the front. I want it to stay in the back. So just hitting it lightly. I might come back in with just a little bit more there, but not too much. Because too much is going to bring it out a lot farther than I want. Okay, so we have our double mountains. Let's add in another row of kind of medium ground mountains. All right. Now, actually, before I do that, one thing that I do occasionally is I will take a little light green, sometimes even a little yellow. Got some yellow here. A nice bright yellow. And I'm going to just really lightly come here. The yellow will kind of blend with the blue and make it a green, but I didn't press very hard, just laid it in just a little bit. I'm going to come in with my fingers. I'm just going to blend that. And what that does is it kind of suggests foliage or greenery, as you see off in the distance. Not a lot of detail. In fact, no detail at all. Just I want a little bit of color there. Okay, let me take my medium blue. This is a turquoise colored chalk, and I'm going to throw in a little bit more dramatic. Now again, we're still doing the upside down V, but I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Obviously this is darker. I want to be real careful not to cover up my mountains in the back. One thing that I had problems with when I was learning how to draw was I would draw some really detailed, really cool looking stuff, and then I'd come back in and I'd draw something else right on top of it. Well, don't draw something if you're going to come back 5 minutes later and cover it up. That's, as a chalk artist, it took me a long time to learn that, but I'm just going to come in, excuse me, and doing my upside down V here, I'm going to bring that edge out, and I'm going to come over here and add a little bit more detail, maybe one more peak, and maybe one more over there. Okay, remember, using the side of the chalk, not drawing like a pencil, but I want to use the side to get a lot of color coverage. And now I'm going to come in again with my fingers. I'm going to blend, and come down here and soften this out just a little bit. See, I actually covered up all that green I put there. I just covered up. You really don't want to do that, but hey, it's a good illustration. Don't do what I just did. All right, here we go. Okay, and I want to soften the edges out again so they're nice and smooth. And let's add a little bit of detail here. Again, coming in, side of the chalk, corner. I'm going to come down. I am going to make this a little brighter. And I just hit that lightly. We bring that down just a little bit here. Let's add a little bit more snow. Well, not really snow. It's sunlight hitting the side. We were out in California once, quite a few years ago, and stayed in the mountains. And there was this huge mountain right outside our cabin. And I got up early one morning, and it was just amazing to see how beautiful the sun was, or the mountain was, as the sunlight hit it. It was pink, and it was just gorgeous. So that's kind of what kind of effect we've got going here. Just some nice highlights from the sun. I'm going to come in with a little darker green. Okay. And this particular, some of these sticks of green chalk tend to be very hard, and it's not always easy to draw with them. Okay, again I'm going to come in and use my fingertips and the heel of my hand to blend just a little bit. And I'm going to use a little darker green really here. And again, just throwing in some color at the moment. Now sometimes you'll see, like this particular green isn't really wanting to cover well. Some of these sticks of chalk are, again, very soft, and others you have to come back in and work a little bit more. So here I've kind of drawn a hill. You know what, I really don't like that hill. I'm going to come in here. Let's take that out. Again, the beauty of working with chalk. You can erase it. Now, of course, I don't get all the color out. I've still got the green in here, but I can correct a lot of my mistakes. Okay, I'm coming back in with sort of the middle value green that we have. And right now I'm just kind of laying in a little pasture. You know, it reminds me of the movie Sound of Music, and you can just see Julie Andrews running across there and twirling around and getting ready to sing that the hills are alive. So let me come in here. There we go. With this kind of chalk, a lot of times you use the colors to, again, create the depth and to bring the foreground out. I'm using a very dark value green here, and that's going to help me bring that foreground to the front. Use my hand to blend it in a bit. Again, I'm just improvising right now. I'm really not planning a picture. I'm just having some fun. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow, throw it on top of that green back in the back. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. And just finish it out with maybe some yellow-orange flowers in here, just to give us a little bit of color and beauty in the foreground. I'm just using the end of the chalk, and I'm kind of tapping in some flowers, rotating it a little bit. And if you want to, even make it a little bit more detailed, you can come back in. And now I'm using the side of the chalk and putting more pressure on the front corner there, so I am using it a little bit more like you might use a pencil. Just coming back in. This is yellow I'm laying on top of the green. It covers in nicely, and then when it blends with the chalk, it's going to turn kind of a green itself. And there you have it. Just a real simple picture of mountains and a little pasture in the front, just for fun. Let me throw maybe some pink flowers back in the background here, just to give it a little bit more visual interest maybe. Again, just an improvised picture, but a lot of fun to do. All right, I want you to play with your chalk. Try to see if you can do that picture. And next week we're going to come back and we're going to learn how to add trees to our mix. So I'm glad you joined us, and I hope you'll find this helpful and that you'll really get your hands dirty and have some fun with chalk. And I'll see you next time.